Welcome to the Media Leader Podcast. I'm Jack Benjamin. A year ago, the Alliance of Independent Agencies and the Land of Independence collaborated to launch a new initiative aimed at sharing knowledge and support for independent media agencies. Enter the Alliance of Media Independence, or the AMI or AMI, which has served as a single route to the indie media agency market for suppliers and media owners. The AMI has spent the last year expanding, now with over 30 members, and they represent combined billings that rival the global holding groups. Martin Woolley and Paul Phelps are founders and chairs of the Alliance of Media Independence. Woolley also works as executive chair of India media outfit What's Possible Group, which owns the agency The Specialist Works, and Phelps is CEO of AMS Media Group. I wanted to sit down with the duo to understand why they founded the AMI last year, the group's plans for expansion, and how they view the market for independent agencies amid consolidation among the holdcos. This is our conversation. I hope you enjoy. Martin Woolley and Paul Phelps, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good, great to be here.
Likewise. Good to be here.
How did you each get into the media industry in the first place? Paul, why don't we start with you?
You started before me. So
I did, yes, indeed. Well, believe it or not, I actually started in the mid-'80s. And it was a time when the ad industry was a very popular career choice, especially for graduates. So there was a bit of a queue at the door to get in. So without boring you with a very long story, my entry actually involved a mail shot to numerous agencies, any copies of which remain would be extremely incriminating. But it was, in fact, that mail shot that got me through a door and got me that initial interview. And but lo and behold, that job, I got two job offers. One was from Saatchi's and the other was from AMS. And I chose AMS, and 40 years later, here I am.
Wow. And Martin, what about you?
Nowhere near as proactive or thought through as Paul's example. I weirdly started working at Haymarket Publishing, doing ad sales on PR Week,
right?
Which I fell into because someone I knew was working there, and they always needed fresh meat, young kind of graduates back in the day to come through, and it just bounced from one ad sales job to another in magazines and newspapers until I chanced upon this small business with about 10 people in it that just looked like they were having fun and were excited about what they could do. And I joined that. It's starting to approach 20 years ago now, and that business has since gone through incarnations and is the Specialist Works. So we're now 120 people and doing some of the stuff that was the dream in the early days.
Well, that's certainly pleasant to hear. So last year, you both together co-founded the Alliance of Media Independence, and take me back to before the launch. Where did the idea actually come from, and what problems were you trying to solve?
Well, this dates back to COVID times, basically, I mean, in fact, if you go back even further, if you go back 30 plus years, there was a body called the AMI, and it was called the Association of Media Independents. And the only reason that existed is because the IPA wouldn't let the media agencies in at that time. But that changed, and the role for that formation of the AMI had kind of passed and was no longer relevant. But then fast forward to the whole kind of era of lockdown and COVID. This gentleman to my right was the catalyst for it, because he actually reached out to those he knew in the business and said, look, actually, we've all got the same problem here. We're all battling against kind of, no one in the office, clients cutting budgets and everything we all remember from those times. And he got us all to tip up on a Zoom call and compare notes. And that, without doubt, so all credit to Martin, but was the catalyst for actually opening a dialogue which led to the fact that we all realised as mutually independent media agencies that we all had much more in common than we didn't, and that we shared very, very similar problems. And that was kind of irrespective of size as well. So that, started a dialogue, which then turned into a thing called the Land of Independence, which, kind of is almost like what I kind of refer to it as Fight Club.
Okay. But you can't be talking about
the first rule of Fight Club, yeah. But because we just compared notes. There was nothing overly confidential that was shared. It was very much going, things like hybrid working, how's getting credit insurance on your clients, how difficult is that? And it was those kind of things. And then, Martin, do you want to talk about what happened last year, which then opened up the door for the current AMI?
Yeah, well, it's what Paul describes as a Land of Independence was that sharing forum, but it was also a bit of a lunch club as well. A couple of times a year we'd get together, someone would buy lunch, and by the time we got to the kind of the cheese, we'd have the same conversation every time, which is look around this table. Even at the time, there may be 7 agencies. We said, look at, if you added our billings up, this is really significant. We should be doing something more, but no one was up for it. It was just like, we've all got day jobs, we all have businesses to run, and it never got any further than table talk until we met the Alliance. And Clive Michon, who's the founder of the Alliance of Independent Agencies, said, look, we have an executive, we run membership, we bring partners in, we organise events, we do everything that you're talking about doing. But media is something we don't know. It's not part of our background. They already had, and this was a kind of proof of concept, they already had a load of partners who'd come to the Alliance a lot of times because they wanted that media spend. So actually, it just seemed like if we were ever going to do it, now had to be the time. So about 14 months ago, something like that, back end of 24, we got our core group of members who'd been in the Land of Independence, basically said, what if? Did a very, very brief paper and said, we could do something like this. There was general consensus. Someone obviously, you're talking about 7 business owners, so we weren't just going to agree, but eventually we managed to iron out the few wrinkles. And we launched a year ago tomorrow, 15th of January, with 10 members and really little more than an idea and a plan and a hope that we were doing something that the market would respond to. By the time we closed our initial intake of agencies, that 10 had grown to 26. So we had 26 founding members 3 months after we'd gone public. That's now 32, 33 agencies, a whole pipeline of other agencies in conversation. Where last time we looked, over 1.6 billion of aggregated billings. It's probably more than that now. So we'll have a look, but certainly in terms of the Nielsen top independent agencies, we've got 9 out of the 10 already members. And the market's really responded to it. They get it. The media owners, the suppliers, the ad tech research, all of those people and the back office suppliers like credit insurance companies, these kinds of people all get that there's a marketplace here. Every one of them knows that if they stimulate the independent sector, they will get growth in a way that might be harder to achieve with some of the PLCs because of various ingrained practices and a mindset, right? We're all entrepreneurs. We all own our businesses. Show us an opportunity. More often than not, we're going to take it. But from their point of view, from the supplier's point of view, that's loads of ground to cover. There's lots of different agencies. It gets quite granular quite quickly when you start going down the list. And it kind of wasn't economically viable because you'd need more people to cover the ground than the benefit you get out of it. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze in some cases. So when we said, all right, well, we've put most of the market into one addressable forum. These are the rules. This is how you approach it. This is what we need. You can't use it to sell. There has to be something over and above what the market can get. But in return for that, we will partner proactively with you, and we'll do our best to create growth that all of us can benefit from, and most importantly, our clients are going to feel that benefit, love their agency more, and ultimately we're going to help them unlock the kind of budgets that they need to spend in order for them to grow their market share. So it's a win-win-win. Yeah.
Just in terms of the 33-ish agencies in the moment, can you describe the sort of size and shape of them? Because I imagine they're all slightly different businesses.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And I know from talking to Martin as well previously that these all have to be full-service agencies. They're not just necessarily smaller, agencies that only service, say, digital markets.
Correct. So we've only kind of introduced as few rules or kind of tick boxes as possible to make access relatively easy. But one of those caveats is, in fact, you call it you could call it full service media agency. The way we interpret that is being media agnostic, as we're calling it. So that when you get a brief from a client, it is literally that blank sheet of paper, and that you're not already predefining what those channels need to be, because you as an agency have a skill set purely, let's say, in search or programmatic or whatever it might be. So that is a key differentiator, because otherwise I do think, there are an awful lot of digital agencies out there that probably do have aspirations to move, let's say you could say upstream into sort of traditional mainstream media, but they haven't got the skill set to do it. So we could find ourselves flooded, if you like, by a particular discipline, for example, digital. So that being media neutral is absolutely key to the membership. Now, in question of the scale and size, obviously the largest indie in the marketplace is 7 Stars, and so they are members of the AMI, and we probably have the smaller end of the scale. We've got a few kind of 3, 4, 5 employee businesses, and we're starting to get attention from a lot of those agencies around the regions that are very interested in getting access to the benefits that we offer. But it is it's the same for all of us. There's a real equality through the membership. Doesn't matter how big or small you are.
You mentioned the benefits of joining the Alliance. What are some benefits, especially over the past year, in terms of examples of things that happened for your members that otherwise wouldn't have without the Alliance?
Well, I'll just take that one first, because when we set this up, and as Martin said earlier, is we were looking at what we could achieve as a body, as an aggregation of like-minded agencies. What we probably hadn't quite accounted for was that it's like that phrase, "build it and they will come." Right?
Oh, yeah, that's Field of Dreams.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. Right. So when we launched it, and this entity was there, the phone started to ring. So whether it be media owners or it be potential suppliers, potential partners, it could be data partners, etc. All of them, there was it started to be a bit of a queue at the door to talk to us, and we were amazed by that, because we thought from a standing start it was about what we could do together off our own bat, not necessarily, people knocking at the door saying, actually, we want to talk to you. And I think in terms of explaining that, kind of surprising outcome was, firstly, Martin's point about, if you want to cover the ground, let's say as a media owner, the kind of scale of sales force you're going to need to employ is just unworkable. So we get that element. But also, I think the market is waking up to the fact that, true incremental growth in terms of revenue build is going to have to come from the indie sector, because at the moment, when a kind of, let's say, a global client moves out of a network, it inevitably moves into another network. So all you're doing is moving money around from one agency network to another, whereas we genuinely are bringing new to market incremental growth money. And I think that realization has really hit home, and something we've seen the benefit of.
Martin, anything in particular that, as I mentioned, sort of has happened this year that may not have happened without the AMI's help?
Most definitely. One that sticks in my mind was a brilliant day. We went to Snapchat HQ in Farringdon. We put about 100 people in the room, which was a mix of agencies and clients. And another indie trait is we like to have the clients in the room, right? There's no kind of Wizard of Oz curtain that we're hiding behind. We want them engaged. We want them to be pushing us. And that had never happened with any indie agency before. Certainly not the kind of media agnostic ones that Paul was talking about. It's the kind of thing that's been reserved for networks up until now. So that was fantastic. Snapchat were brilliant, by the way. Shout out to Sky at Snapchat who organised it all. What the clients and the agencies got from that was, first of all, it's an amazing space. It feels a bit like you're in San Francisco rather than Farringdon. It's very, very yellow. They've got the biggest screen I've ever seen in my life. But they gave really good presentations where everyone felt educated. Plus, we got to play with their AR glasses before they've hit the market.
Yeah, I've done that myself as well.
Exactly. So it was a whole experience for our clients. They got fed, watered, and that was fantastic. So just on that side of things, those kind of opportunities couldn't come to even the biggest of our members, and certainly not to the the picnics and so on who brought their clients and gave them an absolutely brilliant experience. Snapchat got loads more members on their agency program, and there is business coming out of that. So again, that win-win-win that I was talking about, everyone won out of that. Plus, we've got exclusive and brilliant deals with the likes of ITV, Experian. We've got Google really leaning in. So all of these things are not achievable by any one of our agencies acting alone. The opportunity can only come when we join forces and work together. And that's been the most pleasing aspect of it, as far as I'm concerned, is that kind of easy collaboration that you get with indies, everyone supporting each other. I don't know whether this is me being naive or whatever, but it feels like we have a share in each other's success, because we know that most of the market is held by the networks, and we know there is a client type that is better served by indies. So everyone's really looking at how, despite the fact we're pitching against each other, we can grow that pie for all of the indies. So, yeah, loads. Were those the kind of examples you're looking for?
Yeah. I think it's quite interesting. And Paul, you mentioned as well that the client type that is, I guess, typified by the agencies within the group is potentially that sort of incremental ad spend type. A lot of media owners over the past year especially have told us, we want to go after SMEs. We want to grow the pie, because I guess really for the exact reason, Paul, you mentioned that, big accounts move around, but that's just moving money as opposed to growing spend necessarily. Right. So how important is it, I guess, for media owners to maybe have an easy, direct way into your clients? And also, is it fair to say that the clients served by the indie agencies are necessarily smaller businesses or growing businesses? I think it's important because there's so many different types of agencies included here. You might end up having some quite large businesses at a national level, and especially here in the UK, but also maybe some much smaller businesses that I might not have heard of that are being represented. So it's a huge pool, I imagine, across 33 agencies.
Absolutely, yeah. We've kind of done a sort of finger in the water type measurement, so I won't say it's necessarily statistically correct. But our feeling is that, we are talking, our sweet spot could be anything from 2 million to 30 million. That would be kind of the game that we are in as indies. And obviously, the larger the budget within that framework, then they're almost certainly going to be migrating more towards the larger of the indies. So, it kind of works itself out. But what they probably do share is, those businesses those clients we're going to be working with have a like-minded approach to business. They tend to be, kind of owner managed or at least, full control. They're not necessarily global entities. And so that's one of the reasons why the chemistry works is I think indie agencies work best with indie clients almost, that where that, that decision-making process is shorter. It's all about, there's a lot of cliches we can trot out about the virtues of indies, but, it's true. Agility is a key factor. We're quick on our feet. And generally, if you've got shorter reporting lines at the client end, then decision-making is quicker. So things like that and sort of tactical awareness and proactivity are kind of the key merits of what we can bring to the table.
I mean, it's kind of it's almost like if you're a large corporate, especially a large international corporate, you need a large corporate agency. So McDonald's should never appoint indies in every market, right? That would be unmanageable. It makes absolutely no sense. Plus, their spend is big enough for them to be able to get the best people and the best outputs from a network agency. If you're what Paul was talking about there, that kind of up to 30 million, a few outliers bigger than that and a few smaller than 2 million, but generally speaking, those clients are much better served by someone that looks like them, that is their shape. So they are probably domestic advertisers, or if they're international, they're on a relatively limited international journey, maybe English-speaking world, major European markets. Indies are very, very capable of doing that. And a lot of them are owner-operated or they're PE-backed. There might be small publicly listed businesses. But in all of those cases, there is a pressure on them to be able to prove the value of anything that they're doing across their businesses. And indies have got the time, focus and attitude to be able to fit themselves around their clients in a way that networks can only do for the very largest. So, look, I mean, the story that I've told you before, Jack, that one of, in our business, the Specialist Works, one of the clients that we won within the last year or two decided to go to pitch when their network agency, relatively junior, most senior person on the team, came onto their quarterly call and said, "We've put all your money on radio this quarter because we needed it for our deal." They actually said it.
They said that out. Sorry. So to be clear, you had this is a holding group agency that admitted bluntly to the client that we spent all your money on radio because we had a trading deal with whatever radio company that was.
Totally. That's exactly what happened. And that was the impetus for that client to go to pitch. Now, that client happened to be a quite complex client, quite a lot of stakeholders, different operations, etc. They were exactly the wrong shape and spend for a network. And for them, that was their moment when the safe option ceased to be the network. And they went to, what we're seeing more and more now, which is an indie-only pitch list. And we happened to win that one. But I think what's starting to happen now, and that's the other reason why I think Amy's been successful, is we're riding a bit of a wave at the moment. Because a lot of those people who might have seen safety, don't get sacked for buying IBM type feel to the networks, are starting to see pretty much the reverse, that actually what we need it to be is significant in the agency that we choose to work with, and we need that agency to be able to put the extra effort in to make the difference, because those clients, like our agencies, have got, generally speaking, bigger competitors, more established market competitors. If they're going to gain share, they can't do it by outspending them. Something else has to happen. And I think that's what's uniting amongst the AMI membership, is that's what we try and do. We try and work smarter, harder, and in a more transparent and client-centered way to be able to gain market share without them having to spend unrealistic amounts.
Is there a sense that there's increased distrust between clients, especially maybe clients that aren't, as you mentioned, the biggest clients within a holding group's portfolio, clients maybe closer to the back end of that they feel like they can't trust holding groups, especially with spending issues as you raised there?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that to be true. I don't have, the market stats to be able to prove that, but I'll tell you what has changed since, our agencies got together in COVID 5 years ago or so. You never saw an indie only pitch list. I'd never heard of one. I didn't know that was possible. Indies were thrown on there as a little bit of a counterpoint,
Get a different idea within a bigger pitch list.
Exactly. Yeah. Here's the three networks of whom you're probably going to appoint one, and we'll throw an indie in there so that you can see what different looks like. And it's no one was ever really serious about that indie winning. Now, I would say probably half the pitches that certainly in our business we go on are indie only. So something's changed, and I think, to your point, I think it's that client perception that's driving this, which obviously then flows into intermediaries and so on.
I personally think what is slowing the migration, if for want of a better term, towards indies, because I do genuinely think there is a movement. What is slowing it, though, is what I referred to as being advantageous for an indie working with an independently owned client, which is, i.e. the shorter reporting and decision-making lines. In the networks, I think that frustration, and again, I've got nothing to base this on other than hearsay, the frustration that some of those clients may be having with the networks is with a layer of their people that don't have the ability to change it. So, you've got reporting lines that go through multiple layers. And it's the classic case. I once had a conversation with someone, a guy I've known for a very long time in a network. And he just couldn't believe that I'd been working so long for one agency, right? I was this many years in and I'm still at the same agency. And so I turned around to him and said, okay, that's fine. I said, but tell me, who do you report to within your network? He then gave me a name. So I said, okay, who do they report to? He gave me another name. And who do they report to? He gave me another name. And one more, and he couldn't give me a name. So I basically turned around and said, well, there you go. You don't even know who you work for. So that, as a kind of way of articulating, the truth that is an indie, and the fact that actually we all kind of know each other really well, and we can lean on each other. We know who's running it and where they're heading, and we haven't got to rely on any invisible person maybe in New York to steer the ship.
I appreciate the opportunity sort of that you've laid out in terms of maybe a movement toward an embrace of independence, certainly more than a couple of years ago. I'm curious if you don't also worry about potential clients not even embracing any agencies at all. Something like, the worldview of a Mark Zuckerberg, who says actually Meta, doesn't matter how big a client you are, but presumably he's looking at smaller businesses. Come in, give us all your data, give us some of your assets. We can make all the creative. We can plan for you automatically. It's not just Meta anymore. WPP, actually, of the big holding groups, came out with Open Pro recently, which is allowing especially some of the smaller businesses to do something similar, but obviously not just spending across Meta platforms, right? Is that not a threat to the types of businesses that normally might be embracing independence, say, first, if they're looking for maybe more of that personalized, closer working relationship with some of your agencies?
Yeah, so look, I none of us can predict what the future holds. But the point that, someone like a Mark Ritson would make is that it's going to revert to trend line, even if there are short-term changes. And all of those things that you've discussed there, particularly something like Meta, increasingly TikTok, etc. If you're launching a new product business, you should absolutely start there. There's a point at which we all know that will plateau. Plus the market, I think finally, looking at some of the stuff in the media leader and elsewhere, the market's finally starting to realise that you can't just plough more and more into the bottom of the funnel and expect to grow your business long term. And again, going back to the big corporates, like no one needs to tell Aviva that they also need to invest in their brand, right? Those guys learnt that many, many years ago, and they do it consistently. It's seen as building value in their business. Their brand's probably set on the balance sheet. They know that battle's been won. Where we see is that kind of 2 to 30 million that we were talking about there. You can't spend much more than 2 million pure play on Instagram and Facebook and expect to just keep growing in a straight line. It doesn't work like that. You will see a very different shape curve, and it tops out. It flattens out. You can't grow. Your cost pers will start to go up. There's a lot of stuff from people working in pure plays at the moment saying that playbook is changing. The old playbook doesn't work anymore. So there has to be a value add somewhere, right? Because if you could just keep going direct to media owners or just use dashboards to plan and buy everything without any expertise, then everyone would be doing it. Doesn't work. And equally, if you need to take market share away from people with deeper pockets, someone needs to add some value somewhere. It's a bit like the in-housing conversation that's been going on for a long time. And what we see time and time again is clients pulling everything in-house, and you almost like set a timer. It's like 18 months, they'll be back in market, and they always are. Because it's not, everyone thinks marketing and advertising and journalism are really easy, right? It's just when when there's money at stake, you find out it ain't as easy as maybe you thought it was. So I'm not trying to underplay the threats and the changing landscape, but people haven't stopped being people. For brands to influence people long term, there's more similar now than there is different versus other periods in history. So the fundamentals will win out. And again, you look at the significant marketing writers, almost bar none. They're saying they're predicting a return to brand, a return to a broader definition of effectiveness, and that actually the cart has been driving the horse for too long, where measurement has taken the place of proper marketing thinking.
I think as well. I mean, we were all at the Media Leader event last week, right?
At the year ahead specifically, yeah.
Yeah, the year ahead event.
Yeah.
And the microphone was being passed to various members of the audience, and at least one of which said 2026 is going to be the year of the brand comeback. And do you know what? I think they could be right. I think we've bottomed out on this whole performance thing. We've had a client who is a performance-based client. We've had a client that's literally just pulled off TV because they've just gone so far into just the performance metrics.
How'd that work out for them?
Well, I'm about to tell you. So 2.5 weeks.
That's all they lasted
2.5
without
weeks,
TV.
And we got a call going, we want to go back on TV.
Right.
Now, are they an out-and-out kind of, brand-led? No, they are a direct response client. But it just shows you that halo effect. you cannot ignore it, and it's absolutely essential in the marketing mix. And I think that's, with the benefit of the experience we have and the knowledge, the data that we've accumulated, and the parameters that we know are out there, then we can bring them to bear for clients. I mean, can AI do that, deliver that? I'm sure there's an algorithm that could be written to get somewhere near it, but not with the with the same sensitivities that perhaps we can.
In terms of the wider agency landscape, we're talking at a time that's really just still weeks after Omnicom finally swallowed IPG, and there's loads going on, obviously, with that integration at the moment. But you really went from, was it 4 or 5 big holding groups to 1 fewer, essentially, right? How does that impact everything else downstream? Will you start to see, maybe, Martin, as you were describing earlier, maybe some clients reconsider their relationship within a holding group that's even larger than it was just a couple weeks ago? Or do you expect to see, more consolidation within, holding groups, even consolidation amongst indies?
Yeah. Honestly, don't care about holding. Honestly, don't care.
Okay.
2026, if there's a year of indies, I reckon it's the year that we're coming into. Yeah. And I think, nothing exists in isolation. I think what's happening in the holding groups is going to force them to look inwards. It's going to eat up more of their available bandwidth with things that don't benefit clients. And as per the previous comment, even if they do benefit clients, that cascades from the larger spending clients. And does it trickle down to the smaller spending clients? It absolutely won't. Plus, of course, where you've got consolidation, you've got more clashes, you've got more of their very talented and experienced people let go. Quite often it's the people who have built up enough value to be paid a decent amount who go first. We've seen it, over the course of the last year. That's going to keep on happening. The tree's having a good shake, and indies are here ready and waiting for those opportunities. And I don't think, talking to the members, I don't think any of us have ever pitched quite as much as we're doing at the moment. And the win rates are really strong. The number of sectors that come into the indie space are starting to broaden. So there's what happens in the holdcos will drive them to more bad behaviours. You'll see more overarching deals. You see more principal media. You'll see more of them pushing more into their own tech stack. So they can harvest the largest margins. All of those behaviours that we've seen for years and morph but remain. All of that stuff's going to happen, and clients are not daft. Even if they spend 5% of their time thinking about media, ultimately they will realise that they need to start thinking about this sector. And honestly, what I see are amongst the more established agencies and a lot of the smaller, younger agencies who we've got to know over the last year, from Amy, those guys are doing amazing work, and people are having really good years. And I think we'll buck the market as far as that's concerned in 26.
I mean, the bottom line is the moment. I mean, the whole kind of holdco sector. It's not just last year. I mean, it goes back a few years now where they've been facing their challenges. But the solutions that they appear to keep coming up with are all around cost saving. Like when if you're saying consolidation, what's that meaning? Is that you don't consolidate because you see a business opportunity. You consolidate because you're trying to de-dupe functions from within a business to make it more profitable. So whilst they keep pursuing a cost-saving strategy, because you're going to run out of ways they can do that. I mean, that's fine with us. We're cool with that. Carry on, because really the fundamental, issues they probably need to tackle are about, how they service their clients, and the systems and processes and protocols that they work within that ultimately seem to be kind of almost handcuffs on a number of their clients. So we don't have those. So I think Marty's absolutely right. I think last year we did a fair job, not on our own, right, but a fair job at opening that door wider for clients to walk through to the indie sector. And this year now we know that door's open, so let them come flooding through because, realistically, a 5% shift between holdcos and indies, that is massive for us. That represents incredible growth. And I think it's doable.
In terms of looking ahead, you said 2026 could be the year of the indie agency. What do you want to accomplish within AMI, within the alliance, to further grow that or to execute on that hope that you guys have? What are some key things that you're hoping to accomplish that you didn't have in your first year that you want to have in the second year?
Yeah, so we're a startup, right? We're literally 364 days old. So middle of last year, we put in place, Paul and I recruited from across a wide selection of the agency members, some super committed and talented people, and they'll be taking across 6 different areas from digital data and ad tech to marketing and new business to finance. They've got chairs leading them, and they've got groups of committed people pushing those agenda forward. So by the middle of this year, I think that's going to be working really quite well without Paul and I needing to dive into it too well. The Alliance have put dedicated staff in to support AMI, and that will mean that where we've got, let's say, 6, 8, 10 deals at the moment, we'll probably double that. So amongst the major media owners, there's active conversations going on in the out-of-home space with actually a lot of the major players coming together to be able to offer value to our membership, which I don't think's ever happened before. So there's those kind of, if you like, business as usual things are going to keep happening. We've got handpicked programmatic providers that are offering extra value for clients and agencies in a whole variety of different ways, etc., etc., etc. So that's all really good. So just the organic, if you like, the organic growth is going to be really significant. Plus, as I said, we've got a pipeline of new agencies in the background looking to join. We're also looking to create some, if you like, killer applications for what AMI can do. And some of those are based around the fact that these are owned and operated businesses. Again, it's a different dynamic to working in a large PLC. If you're a business owner, you wake up in the middle of the night sweating about your staff cost to GP ratio. But or maybe that's just me. But things that we can do that make our businesses better by coming together collectively include things like trade credit insurance, which we're actively pursuing at the moment. If your insurance premiums go down significantly, that's bottom line cash, which you can invest back into your business. Things like that, I think, are we will end up with total coverage of the indie market, and we only get stronger as we do that. Plus, as Paul mentioned before, we haven't proactively really gone out to anyone yet. We've been responding to knocks on the door, and some people have come to us with some very interesting ideas about ways that we could collaborate that we hadn't even thought about, which might be more difficult to set up, but the payoff at the back end will be significantly bigger.
What kinds of things can you share?
I'm not going to share that yet, Jack, because I'm a blabbermouth and it is not the right time. Although I'm very tempted, but you'll be the first to know as and when some of these things take place. But the point is, Paul and I are going to have the space to be able to explore those. And honestly, I don't think we've even scratched the surface yet. There's so much more to come. It's quite exciting.
I mean, what we do we do say, in the same way we talk about the caveats on membership, but when we are pursuing these partnerships, we're saying that it can't just be another sales pitch. There has to be something incremental for our members that they, as we've said before, that they could not get alone. So whenever we engage in that kind of dialogue with an external party that wants to lean in and they see, my God, you've got 1.6 billion. When they see that, it's like, well, slow down, because we're gonna need to explore something that is actually a unique benefit to our membership, that they're not going to sit there and go, yeah, but I could have got that on my own. Yeah? So, and that's genuinely where we've found ourselves, which is great news.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll have to leave it there. But Martin, Paul, it's been a total pleasure, and I wish you guys the best of luck. And I look forward to hearing you blabber a little bit more, perhaps in the future.
Oh, don't worry. It's dry January now. It's only going to get worse.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Cheers.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Media Leader Podcast. Our executive producer is me, Jack Benjamin. Special thanks to our production partner, Trisonic. You can find all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts or on our website at themedialeader.co.uk. But do please remember to subscribe to be notified when we release our next episode. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at The Media Leader to receive daily coverage of all the biggest stories in media and advertising. From all of us at The Media Leader, I'm Jack Benjamin. See you next time.